A select group of individuals are paid to talk about video games. These people narrate over tournament broadcasts for esports to provide context, analysis, and emotion to the show. But what do the finances look like for those seeking to be a professional commentator? How much can these casters make on the high and low end? First, let me start with some quick context about myself and what I'll be covering. My name is Fear Dragon, and I've been doing commentary at the absolute bottom to the premier level of StarCraft 2 for roughly 11 years now. Esports is not my full-time job, but over the years, through both my own experience and the experience of my fellow talent in StarCraft 2 and other games, I've learned a bit about the finances of the industry. Out of respect for my coworkers' privacy, I won't be using their names, and while I'll try to use hard numbers where I can, I'll sometimes defer to ranges or annual income instead of per event income for their own privacy. Before we get into the different tiers of commentators, let's talk about what I call the 3 types of commentary gigs. First, you have what most people think of. You get hired to commentate an event on someone else's channel. Usually this type of gig offers compensation, if any, in direct monetary payments. These can range from live events to online broadcasts. There's no cost to you in these circumstances, but the payment amounts can vary from being unpaid to being paid pretty damn well. The second is when you decide to run your own event on your own channel. In this case, there are costs to you, as running events mean you have to pay out others, such as players, potentially a co-caster or an admin. However, you'll be running the event on your own channel, so the monetization opportunity comes from any monetization offered by the platform you broadcast on, such as Twitch subscriptions, tips, sponsorships, ad revenue. These gigs can range from losing money to being pretty sustainable as a business model, and comes with the advantage of building up your own brand that you'll have a lot more control over. The third type of gig is a fusion between the first two. Sometimes organizations will outsource the broadcast for their event to you and ask you to do it on your own channel. The revenue opportunities for this can vary heavily, but typically you won't lose money on these. You get the benefit of broadcasting on your own channel without the risk of loss and not having to worry about paying the operational costs of running the event. Some orgs will provide monetary payment for your work on top of that, especially if your channel increases the tournament's overall reach. If monetary compensation is offered, it is typically less than if you were doing the work on the organization's channel. And while this is a nice deal, it is a lot less sustainable because you don't really have control over how often these kind of deals come along. It's probably not a surprise to most that there's not a lot of money in this when you start off. Most entry-level opportunities are either unpaid or even end up costing you money to run your own event. You may have gotten a little bit of experience, and you might find some places paying $5 to $25 a day to have you cast an event. For me personally, I operated in this area for close to 5 years from 2011 and 2016, and almost everyone at this level is basically doing it as a hobby because they enjoy it. My annual net revenue from esports around this level was usually negative, or in the $200 range a year at best. If you keep working at it, you may eventually get lucky and start to grow your brand a bit. This means you'll start to see some money flowing in that's more than just token amounts, and you start to feel like this is less like someone doing community service. Maybe your channel is growing and you're able to pull in 1 to 500 viewers for broadcasts and pick up some minor sponsors, or maybe an org is hiring you to do some mid-tier events. Payment at this level can vary pretty heavily because it's a Wild West transitionary stage. For folks able to run their own events or consistently find events to cover, you could start making a few $100 a month through sub revenue, donations, etc. On the higher end, some folks can maybe start making close to $1,000 a month, but 12 grand a year is not really even minimum wage in places like America. At the high end of this stage, you may even start to get some opportunities from larger orgs that are running premier events who might offer $200 to $400 per day for running a B stream of an event. This is where a lot of people's eyes will light up and think, $300 a day for 8 hours of work? That's like $37.50 an hour. That's pretty decent money, right? Problem is that these events are often far and few between, and even on the higher end, you'll probably be extremely happy if you get hired for 30 days a year for these kind of opportunities. The money here is nothing to sneeze at, but in conjunction with a solid live stream channel, you may be pulling in something in the range of $10,000 to $30,000 a year. It can be a living, but without some larger growth or a lot of cost cutting, you're gonna have a hard time getting by. For context, in my home state of California in the United States, minimum wage for a 40-hour work week is $31,000 a year. So it's far from raking in the big bucks. Finally, you've made it to the Premier League, and you've been given your first shot at casting in the big times. These experiences are typically working a Premier Live event or a studio broadcast, and are where a decent portion of your income as a commentator may start coming from. There's an industry standard starting rate I've seen a lot of $500 a day for someone's first Premier event. This can vary from scene to scene, but larger organizations will often start people at around this rate or something close to it. This may seem like a lot, but again, keep in mind that most people are not working 261 days a year at this rate, which is how many working days there are if you're working a Monday through Friday job. When you're starting off, it could be as few as 4 or 5 days a year of work while these orgs try you out. Now, a quick side note is that Premier events are usually broken up into 3 different types of days: travel days, rehearsal days, and broadcast days, each of which can have a different day rate on which you get paid. This isn't a hard, fast rule for every org, but my experience is that broadcast days are often your full day rate, and travel or rehearsal days are usually half your day rate. After you've been tried out, your day rates will typically increase. This is where variance, depending on the scene you're in, how popular you are, availability of others, how far you are from the event, how long the event is, your relationship with the org, and so many other factors can come into play. One of the difficult realities of the industry is that there isn't a clear and obvious way to know how much you're worth. It's a question everyone will have to answer for themselves, and sometimes you'll love a grassroots event and will be willing to work with them for less than your normal rate, while other times you may charge more because you know the org can afford it, or maybe it's not an event you're dying to work for. To give you an idea of the range I've seen, a lot of solid and sustainable mid-tier esports circuits might pay anywhere between $500 to $2,000 day rates for most talent. Larger and top-tier circuits may do from $750 to much higher day rates I don't even feel comfortable talking about. It's important to note that the higher end of those rates are often the top end of talent for shorter events such as a big annual finals, so keep in mind that a lot of these might end up being one-offs with weeks or even months of downtime in between. My biggest piece of advice to those involved is talk to your fellow talent and learn what is normalized or okay pay values for your org that you're working with. Day rates are largely around negotiations, and it's very easy to get underpaid, and an unfortunate reality is sometimes overpricing yourself just results in the org dropping communication without a word and hiring someone else. Now, a quick side note is that most esports commentators also work as independent contractors. You get hired for an event by an org, you negotiate your rate as a contractor. There are a few orgs that have hired commentators as employees. Being an employee has some advantages in that you have a consistent stream of work, but terms of employment can vary and your pay may not scale up how you want it to as your workload increases. And in some cases, employees have terms that limit their freedom to pursue other games or opportunities. Beyond the Premier gigs, there's also an opportunity to run your own stream, which you can have a high degree of variance and success. I won't go too deep into this though, because everyone's Twitch income was leaked not too long ago, so if you want to learn more about that, just go read that. So, how much do Premier commentators make in the end? Well, in case it wasn't obvious, it can vary from barely making $20,000 a year to making hundreds of thousands a year. The two biggest factors are your day rate and how frequently you can keep yourself booked with work. So, Fear Dragon, what can you say about your income? Well, without going into my actual day rate, I can say that across revenue from my own channel, Premier event gigs, all totaled together, my revenue from the past few years ranges from $20,000 to $35,000 a year. I'd note that since I have a full-time job, I'm not capitalizing on many of the opportunities for revenue, such as the fact that I only live stream roughly 30 hours a year, and I actively turn down sponsorship opportunities. I also said it was my revenue, not my net income, because I like to spend money on some really silly stuff. So I think revenue will be more helpful for people to get a rough idea of things. So did any of this surprise you? Do commentators make more or less than you thought? I'm hoping to do a similar video on other jobs in the industry, such as what are the finances of players in esports. If you'd be interested, let me know. Thanks for watching.